How's it going, my friends? So, if you spoke to any random, I guess, anti-Semite in the Soviet Union, shortly after World War II, and even in the subsequent years after that, and you asked them, tell me something. Where did Jews fight during World War II? Where were they in World War II? Where did they fight? For whose army did they fight? This anti-Semite will tell you, it's a very famous running gag by him, he'll say, the Jews fought in Uzbekistan. Евреи воевал в Uzbekistan. Why do they say that? Because that's where people, women and children, were evacuated to. So the assumption is that Jews did not go to the army, that they skirted the army, and that they went into evacuation. Ladies and gentlemen, on this Victory Day, May 9th, I'm here to tell you that that is a total BS. Roughly anywhere between 250,000 and 300,000 Jewish men and women fought for the Soviet army during World War II. One of those people, one of those brave soldiers, was my grandfather, Colonel Grigory Lifshitz, after whom I'm named, or Tzvi Hirsch. My grandfather was born in Berdichev, and which is a very famous, place, as you know, home of Levi Yitzhak of Berdichev. And my grandfather finished about 8 grades, and then he went into what you would call technical school, and then he joined, became a young communist, even though he didn't believe in communism as an ideology, as a political or economic ideology. It was just something you did. It's like getting your driver's license, you had to do it to get anywhere, in life and society. So he did that, and he went on to the army, and he fought in a ton of places, in Stalingrad and different places. He went through hell. He was captured twice. He was a POW twice. And in his case, he was a Jew, he was an officer, and he was a card-carrying member of the Communist Party, even though, again, he didn't believe in communism. So that was basically a triple whammy against him. And what normally the Germans did with such people is they just killed them on the spot, because they knew that they couldn't get any information out of him because he was a Jew, and Jews did not betray the country that they fought for. If there were Jews in the German army, they would never give up information to anyone else. Just like a Jew would never give up information, a Jew fighting for the Soviet army would never give up information. So they knew they're not going to get anything out of him, so he's basically useless. On top of that, he's an officer, and officers were, part of the head of the snake, so, they would get rid of him. So both times he figured, okay, I'm either a dead guy if I stay, or I'm going to take my chances and try to escape. I could be a dead guy, or could be a live guy. And he did this twice. He escaped twice. Guys, I'm sitting here today talking to you. Okay? At least in this vessel, because my grandfather escaped being a POW twice. But I'll tell you guys about people who didn't escape, which were my grandfather's first family in Berdichev. First family meaning his first wife, the wife he had before he met my grandmother, his kid, his pregnant wife, his first wife, and my great-grandfather. just at the start of the war, he came back. He got on his I guess Studebaker, and he came back to Berdichev, and he said, "Listen, you got to leave." He said to my great-grandfather, "You got to leave, Yankel Pinchas." And my great-grandfather was like, "Listen, man," much like most Jews, he's like, "Listen, I have a business here. I got my factory, my shmatas here. You know, your wife is here. Listen, man, you have your orders. Go do what you got to do. Go to the front. Besides," and my grandfather told him, "No, you got to leave. The Germans are coming." And my great-grandfather was like, "Okay, so what? My enemy is Stalin. The Germans helped us in World War I." To which I say, ladies and gentlemen, do not, on this May 9th, try to see if you can see both sides of the coin. Do not have what I like to call Yankel Pinchas syndrome, where he sees only one side or one enemy in front of him and cannot see the other side of the same exact coin. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people are able to see the enemy that is Putin. Okay? The enemy that is Putin and his Rebbe Dugin, Alexander Dugin, they're able to see it. Well, what they don't seem to understand is that the other side of that coin, my friends, are Tavka, the Shmorot Economic Shmorim, Smoros, Tsuris, as they like to call him, George, the Hungarian, supposedly Jew, heir of Rav. Shmobilists, if you want to use the general term, notwithstanding accusations of anti-Semitism when using that term. Ladies and gentlemen, you notice this war began right when this big document drop of Schmeiser documents came out, and everybody was distracted. My friends, notice again what's happening in America with this whole Schmo versus Wade discussion. The leak was leaked on the same day that a next document drop came out from Schmeiser. My friends, we are in the middle of at least attempting to reveal the biggest scandal since, if you want to combine the Madoff fiasco with the Shabtai Tzvi fiasco, those two combined pale in comparison to what we're about to see, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to see it. Sooner or later, we're going to see it. I hope sooner, but it looks like it's happening way too slow. Crawling at the speed of snail. Okay? And my friends, my great-grandfather, Yankel Pinchas, couldn't see the other side of the coin. And so, when his supposed German friends got to Berdichev, they weren't such friends. And even prior to that, or during that time, the people who actually had a hand in liquidating him and my grandfather's family were actually Ukrainians. Polizei, the people who ran ahead of the Germans to kill them. Lest I remind you guys. So, and my grandfather came back after the war, and he found that Ukrainian captain, and he shot him on the spot, from which my grandfather was demoted from colonel to lieutenant. He was technically, when he left this world, he was a lieutenant. Technically, he was a colonel. People called him colonel on the streets and on the beach or wherever he went. People who knew him, they said colonel. So when my father was applying to leave the Soviet Union with my mother, he found my grandfather's documents. It says lieutenant. He's like, well, what lieutenant? And that's when he found out, years later, he got the rest of the story of how this even happened. They were supposed to send him to Siberia for doing extrajudicial killing of an enemy, or I guess of someone, of a culprit. But he was respected, and so they just demoted him. But ladies and gentlemen, on this May 9th, just remember, there are two sides of the same coin here. There are very dangerous people on both sides of this conflict. Really, there are. If you're wondering why, for example, all these celebrities and all these politicians are visiting face to face Ukraine in person, why they're doing it, it's not just for PR purposes. It's not. It's not just because they have a bleeding heart. It's not just because of that, ladies and gentlemen. There are things happening behind the scenes that we don't really understand. And these are things that are not in our, so to speak, in our favor. Okay? And I always tell people, even if this guy Putin croaks and collapses tomorrow, halavai, who's going to replace him? You're going to replace him with another KGB guy. Okay. Wonderful. And my friends, even if Ukraine wins this war and sends the Russians back home with their tails in between their legs, and, you know, the Russians have a revolution, okay, what, you think things are going to get better in Ukraine? It's going to be back to politics as usual, corruption as usual, prostitution as political prostitution, and even literal prostitution as usual. And that will include, my friends, the Shmurl Shmikonomic Shmorum, Shmoros, Santa Claus Con Schwab. My friends, this is far from over. Even if the war, so to speak, ceases, this is far from over, my friends. Anyway, guys, I just want to, with that said, I want to say that my grandfather's neshama, my grandfather Tzvi Hirsch ben Yankov Pinchas, his neshama should have an aliyah, and all the people, all the Jews who perished in this war. You know, not all 250,000 perished. Obviously, there's a few that are alive. They're very, very elderly. You can talk to them today. A lot of them live in Brooklyn and other places, as far as here in America. But they're very, you know, they're up there in their 90s. Some of them are reaching 100. You know, Ad Mei Esrim. They should live until 120 and tell the stories. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, the more the years go along, the more we're forgetting about these people. We're forgetting about, you know, what happened in the Holocaust, or even how we got to the Holocaust. That's a whole other story, and I've had this conversation many times. But we need to remember. And so today, guys, today is not about venerating, you know, the Soviet army or venerating Russia. It's just about remembering those Jews, at least 250,000, if not 300,000, who fought against, they didn't necessarily fight for Stalin. They fought against Hitler. They fought against the forces of evil. A lot of them had to deal with Stalin after World War II. Stalin betrayed them, sent many of them to Siberia, the ones who fought for him. You know? So my friends, you see, it was just the other side of the same coin. You know, back then, it was Stalin and Hitler, or Stalin and the Germans. Today, my friends, it's Putin and, you know, the Nazis that didn't go away. This organization, my friends, is led by he's basically a Nazi, this Schwab guy. He's the son of a Nazi. If you Google anything about his parents, you're not going to find it. Interestingly enough, you'll find one article called Schwab Family Values, written by this Welsh guy. Very detailed, very researched about his family. My friends, I highly recommend it. Just remember, guys, it's two sides of the same coin. And, you know, for all the Jews who fought and died in that war, I hope we're never going to have to go through this again. But if we do, you can rest assured, my friends, and I include myself in this, that the Jews will not be fighting in Uzbekistan. All right, guys. Talk to you soon.